Prime Minister, Finance Minister, High Commissioner, friends, donors, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Parliament Square. We're gathered here today in the shadow of Churchill, Mandela, Lincoln, and other great leaders who shaped the world in incredible ways. And this morning, we're adding another to their number. Standing among the statues of presidents and prime ministers, we're unveiling a memorial to a humble lawyer from Gujarat, a man who took on the biggest empire the world has ever seen, armed not with weapons, but with the power of his convictions. A man whose actions have inspired generations of activists and campaigners, a man called Mahatma Gandhi. In a moment, we're going to be hearing from our very special guest, India's Finance Minister, Arun Jaitley.
Mr. Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely grateful to the Honourable Prime Minister and all those who made today's event possible and for inviting me to this historic and nostalgic occasion when Gandhiji's statue is being unveiled at the Parliament Square. Nobody embodies the deep and enduring connection between the world's oldest democracy and the world's largest democracy, as well as Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, the Mahatma whose statue is being unveiled today. Gandhiji will find himself permanently in stone, very close to the place he occupied transiently in flesh and blood on his first night in London more than 125 years ago. Gandhiji struggled to break Britain's imperial hold over India and to force the world's oldest democracy to create the world's largest one are stuff of history and legend. But even as he waged this struggle, he admired Britain, valued many of the things that it stood for, and cherished his friendship with scores of Britons. During the Battle of Britain, he was moved to tears at the thought that Westminster Abbey might be bombarded. So great was his regard for British values that he would condemn many unfair and unjust practices as being un-British. His closest friends and confidants and counsellors in South Africa, which proved to be a training ground for his experiments with non-violent means of resisting oppression and satyagraha, were English. One of his deepest spiritual bonds was struck with C.F. Andrews, the only person who called him by his first name Mohan, whereas the rest of the world referred to him more respectfully as Bapu or Gandhiji. In short, Mohandas Gandhi became a Mahatma not just because Britain gave him the cause that would define his life, but also the human and other connections that made the fight for that cause possible. Today, India and Britain have come a long way since the parting at the midnight hour of 1947. Historical legacies form the ties that bind our two countries. Language, the enlightened values of democracy, free speech, pluralism, religious freedom, rule of law, institutions such as merit-based civil service, civilian-controlled army, independent judiciary, and a very vibrant press. These bequests have had a lasting effect on us. Mature nations transcend bitterness and acrimony. In Parliament Square, there is also a statue of Sir Winston Churchill, arguably the man who opposed Gandhi most resolutely. Some would detect an irony in the great Prime Minister sharing a public space with a man he once described as a half-naked fakir. Maybe there is an irony, but even Churchill would have acknowledged that the resolve, determination, and even cunning he showed in standing up to the mighty military machine that threatened the very existence of a proud and free people was replicated by Gandhiji in his seeming unequal battle against the world's mightiest empire. What will link Churchill and Gandhi together is their strength of character. But it's a greater tribute to Britain to recognize Gandhiji's contribution and choose to place the seditious half-naked fakir next to his one-time nemesis Churchill. And of course, next to the man that Gandhiji inspired, Nelson Mandela. For this gracious act, Mr. Prime Minister, my government and all of India are deeply thankful to the tireless work of the Gandhi Statue Memorial Trust, including its chairman, Lord Meghnad Desai, to the prodigious talent of sculptor, Philip Jackson, and above all, the capacious Gandhi-like spirit of the British government and its people. Thank you very much indeed.
Our next speaker requires no introduction. But for those of you who are not familiar with his work, Amitabh Bachchan is probably the greatest actor in the history of Indian cinema. And I think some of his fans are here this morning. He's a star of almost 200 films and also an accomplished poet. Today, he will be sharing an extract from Gandhi's teachings, one that perfectly captures the great man's political philosophy. Thank you.
An extract from Non-Violent Way to World Peace by Mahatma Gandhi. Perhaps never before has there been so much speculation about the future as there is today. Will our world always be one of violence? Will there always be poverty, starvation, misery? Will we have a firmer and wild belief in religion, or will the world be godless? If there is to be a great change in society, how will that change be wrought? By war or revolution? Or will it come peacefully? Different men give different answers to these questions, each man drawing the plan of tomorrow's world as he hopes and wishes it to be. I answer not only out of belief, but out of conviction. The world of tomorrow must be, will be, a society based on non-violence. That is the first law. Out of that, all other blessings will follow. It may seem a distant goal, an impractical utopia, but it is not in the least unobtainable, since it can work for here and now. An individual can adopt the way of life of the future, the non-violent way, without having to wait for others to do so. And if an individual can do it, cannot whole groups of individuals, whole nations? Men often hesitate to make a beginning because they feel that the objective cannot be achieved in its entirety. This attitude of mind is precisely our greatest obstacle to progress, an obstacle that each man, if he only wills it, can clear it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bachchan. I think that reading really reminds us of what made Gandhi so inspirational and why we're all here today to honor him. This brings us to the unveiling itself. The statue was created by the renowned British sculptor Philip Jackson, who is here in the audience today. The honor of unveiling it falls to Finance Minister Jaitley. He's going to be joined by the Prime Minister, David Cameron, Gandhi's grandson, Gopalkrishna, Amitabh Bachchan, and Lord and Lady Desai, who led the campaign for this statue and without whom none of us would be here today. Thank you.